So this is lesson 4.3, the third video C in trigonometry, graphs of the other circular functions. We're in example 4. We have y equals -3 tangent of 1/2 x. Alright, so let's find out the period of this. Pi over b, in this case it's 1/2, which means our period is 2 pi when you invert and multiply 1/2. The asymptotes that are next to each other, the closest ones that we know that the tangent will fall within, is going to be b of x equals -pi over 2, and b of x equals +pi over 2. So our b here is 1/2, so 1/2 x equals -pi over 2, and 1/2 x equals regular old pi over 2. Get rid of this by multiplying both sides by 2 over 1 times 2 over 1. I kind of skipped some steps there, but you know how to do that. That's old algebra. -2 pi over 2, which equals -pi. And this is 2 pi over 2, which equals pi. So those are my adjacent asymptotes. I'm going to erase all this so that we can start drawing our graph, because that's pretty much where we're at this point. So I know my period is 2 pi, and I know my adjacent asymptotes, the ones that are next to each other, are going to be, I'm just going to draw a real quick graph here, are going to be at -pi and +pi. Now, what did we say the period was on this? Said the period was 2 pi. Well, that's obvious. The difference between the sum of these two, 1 pi this way and 1 pi this way, that's 2 pi. So there's my period. So I know these are my asymptotes. Okay, and then I find the quarters. So the first quarter, or this in half, is going to be right there. This in half is going to be pi over 2. And this in half is going to be -pi over 2. Okay, remember to find those points here. You take this one and this one, add them together, divide by 2. This one and this one, add them together, divide by 2. And in this case, because this is 0, it's always going to be pretty simple. Alright, so at this point, we take our x, and we're going to put in -pi over 2, 0, and pi over 2. And see what that kicks out as far as a y value. So when we take -pi over 2 and put it in here, times 1/2, we're going to get -pi over 4. The tangent of -pi over 4 times -3 is going to give us, the point that we're looking for here. In this case, using -pi over 2, it's going to give us a y value of 3. When we plug 0 in, it's going to give us a y value of 0. When we plug pi over 2, it's going to give me -3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we'll do these in, let's do it in green again. So we know it's going to cross here. We know it's going to cross at -2, +3, and then at -2, -pi over 2, -3. And because we are going to get this graph right there. Okay, so that ends up giving us a graph that's flipped over simply because of this negative right there is going to make it flip over and kind of turn into what the cotangent looks like. Okay, so when we have a cotangent, y equals 1/2 cotangent of 2x. Now if you look back on page 161, step 1, we were using for tangent b of x equals -pi over 2 and bx equals pi over 2 in order to find the asymptotes. Okay, for cotangent, it's a little bit different. So instead of using those two, for cotangent, we're going to use b of x equals 0 and b of x equals pi. So here's my bx. So 2x equals 0. So x will then equal 0. And 2x equals pi. And x then will equal pi over 2. So there are my vertical asymptotes for these. And we'll just keep plugging away from that. Alright, so we have 0 to pi over 2. So we start here as a vertical asymptote. Make it green. And then pi over 2 as the other asymptote. And then we divide this into 4 equal places. So we're going to divide this in half. So that's going to be pi over 4. Divide this in half. And this in half. Okay, remember, in order to find this point here, we take this plus this and divide it by 2. And that'll give us this here. It's that halfway point there between those two. So that gives me my 3 points for x. Now I have to find my y value. So I'm going to take pi over 8, put it in here, multiply it by 2, and get 2 pi over 8, which is pi over 4. Take the cotangent of pi over 4, multiply that by 1/2, and I get, for my y value, 1/2. I do the same with pi over 4, and I get a 0, and I do that with 3 pi over 8, and I get a negative 1/2. So I end up being able to draw my graph to look like that. So that's the cotangent of 2x.